Hello, Facebook friends. Who wants to learn more about the human ego? That's what we're here today to explore and get clear on. What is this thing? Is it a friend? Is it a foe? What's the big deal? Why does everyone want to get rid of their ego? What is so bad about the ego? What does it say down below? Everybody is trying to get rid of their ego these days, as if it were all bad. What if there was something about it? Oh, what if there was something good about it? That's what I meant to say. Well, you can read along in the crawler down below. That's the bottom line here, right? Everybody's trying to get rid of their ego these days, as if it were all bad. But what if there was something good about it? Just what if? And on a quick little tangent, I always love to bring this up any opportunity I get. We've all heard that saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, what does this saying mean? It's been around for a very long time. It's common sense and, generational. Well, way back in the day, taking a bath was a real ordeal, especially for a family. It wasn't like each person in the family got to take their own fresh, clean bath or shower, which didn't even exist. They pretty much all shared a bath. And it usually would start out with the patriarch, right? The man would always be first. Not that say that's right or wrong, in case I trigger somebody by saying that, but traditionally that's what it would be. The man would take the bath first, and then I don't know the order of it. Probably the wife, maybe next, then the kids, and the very last person that would get to take a bath would be the baby. The least conscious, obviously. I guess it won't complain as much as everybody else. Anyway, the baby was the last one to take the bath. So you can imagine by the time the baby is taking a bath, or the mother is giving the baby a bath, is more appropriate, that water was probably pretty dirty. So you can imagine that the baby could easily get lost in that dirty, dirty bath water. So the next time you hear it or say it yourself, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. That's really where it comes from. And the lesson to be learned is simply that when you go to throw anything away in life, you better make sure that there's not something good in there that you're throwing away too. And that pertains to the human ego, which is another piece of life. I personally believe that life is dual in nature, and it's more than a belief. I've got tons of evidence. You want to argue with me about the fact that life isn't dual? I can point out that we have a night and a day, an up and a down, a happy and a sad. There's always a pendulum swinging back and forth in life. It's never standing still. Ups and downs, winning and losing. I could go on and on. Life is dual in nature. So everything has something of the opposite in it. If you look at my my logo here, which I can't point to, I'll point to it. Nope, that way. That's the Tao symbol. A lot of people call it yin and yang, which is the two parts of the Tao. And that represents exactly what we're talking about. I don't have yes, up there. Let me see if I can point to it. There we go. Look up here in the top corner. See the Tao symbol? And do you see that there's two little dots, right? In the white, there's some black. In the black, there's some white. Duality. In everything, there's a little bit of the other. So in every amazing, great, and wonderful thing, there's also something probably not very good about it. And everything horrible and terrible and devastating and tragic, there's probably a little bit of good in there somewhere. Does that make sense? Let me hear from you. I want to know if this information is valuable, if it's making sense to you, or it's helping you make sense of yourself and how we as humans operate. The ego. Is it a friend? Is it a foe? Maybe it's both. Mm-hmm. More often than not, it pretty much comes up that people are very familiar with what's bad about the ego. However, there's probably not a lot of people that are very familiar with what's good about the ego. Some have tapped into it. I see comments in some of my posts that are actually very inspiring. There's a lot of people waking up these days. There's a lot of awareness coming into the world, and I'm very enthusiastic. I'm very excited about the prospects of what's to come because we've been through hell, folks. If you don't recognize that, then take some inventory and look at the last few years. Go all the way back to 2008, even as far back as 2001. It has been a crazy, wild ride. And it's about time for things to get a lot lighter. I already showed you my title. We don't need to see that again. So what's so bad about the ego? There's got to be an upside to it, right? That's what I'm here to discuss with you today. More than anything is the upside of the ego, so that you don't get caught up in the popular approach to enlightenment and self-awareness, which is eliminate the ego, destroy the ego bad. No, there are a lot of limitations that come with the ego, but there's also some good things that are worth mentioning so that you can discern for yourself what you're actually throwing away. And maybe you can sift through it and keep what's good and throw away the rest. That's what I do in my life. Anytime I receive advice, even my own advice, I always put it through that crucible that to test it, to make sure that it's solid and it's tangible and it's real. If you have beliefs and you're afraid to share those beliefs with other people, that's just a sign of how fragile they are. Your beliefs ought to be robust. You want them to be solid. That's where faith comes from. Faith comes from believing in what we believe absolutely. And when you do that, some pretty amazing things happen. When we commit our whole self, body, mind, and soul to an outcome, to an intention, to a project, to a relationship, that's where the magic is. And I would love for you to just believe me, but instead of telling you to believe me, I'm going to encourage you to have your own firsthand experience of what I'm talking about. Anything that I'm sharing with you today, don't take it at face value. Run it through a crucible. Put it to the test. I have nothing to fear about what I'm sharing with you. I'm rock solid in my beliefs that I am sharing with you today. It's up to you to decide if you want to believe like I believe. And the only difference between you and I is simply what you believe, what I believe. How cool is that? What a much simpler world it would be if we just stuck with that viewpoint, right? So the upside. Okay. I always have to remind people that these weekly live value videos that I'm doing take a lot of work. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. There's a lot of pre-planning. I've got to do graphics. I've got to do a script and all this stuff. So I'm asking you, for the very least, to please engage with my content. If you're here watching it already, then that means you like it. So go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Throw out a heart if you love it. And by all means, share this video with the people in your life that matter. Anybody in your life that you want to empower to be more of their true self, then connect them with me and this video and my other videos. They're all insightful and they all lead to a greater self-awareness. That is the intention behind all of my value videos, is to leave you with more clarity than when you came on to watch this video, to leave you with more confidence in yourself before you came on this video. These are my goals. This is my intention. So please like it, love it, and share it. Obviously, you're probably watching this. You're definitely watching this on my page, which if you're not following my page right now, you won't get notifications and you won't be on the on the up and up with what's going on my page. I also have a group that this is streaming to, which is private. You're going to have to join that. I will put up more posts on my page directing people to the group. I eventually intend to do even more in-depth videos in the group. So I'll do a weekly value video here on my page and then do a follow-up deeper exploration in the private group that you'll have to join. For some reason, Facebook just decided on a whim a couple of weeks ago to radically change the whole way that their platform operates when it comes to scheduling live videos on my profile, which is where I normally would do it, because obviously more of you are my friends on my profile than are following my page. I will take a snippet of this and put it on my profile, so if you're hearing this, please go over and like my page so you can continue to watch these amazing, life-changing videos. Oh, and your notifications, obviously. It's funny that I have to go through this every time because I just don't know the experience level of the person watching this video on the other side. I don't know if they know how to manage their notifications. I'm not even sure if they know how to like and follow pages. So every time I come on, I have to reiterate those simple instructions so that people, you know, do what helps with the reach of the video and gets this into more people's hands, which is weird. Gets this in front of more people to watch and learn and grow from. No, it's not an ego gratification thing that I'm here doing this for. I mean, sure, part of my ego is definitely in love with the idea of being a world changer and empowering world changers. Oh my gosh. Of course I would have to have some sort of an ego to do this kind of crazy, out of this world approach to life. It's not mainstream at all. It is not status quo. I am the polar opposite of status quo and the mainstream. So put those notifications on. Got it? Thank you. Okay. Now you want to know what's in it for me, right? Keith is asking me to do all these things. So what's in it for me? Well, you took your time to come over and watch this video. Might be live or it might be the replay. And that is when I take the time to sincerely acknowledge you and appreciate you for devoting your time and attention to ultimately a deeper understanding of yourself, more self-awareness. I hope that's your goal when you're watching this video, is to learn a little bit more about yourself. It's called, let me point to it right, I did it, Foundations of Fundamentals. The Found Fun Discovery Method is the shortening of Foundations of Fundamentals. That's what this is all about. The fundamentals of being human, the fundamentals of how we create our reality, the fundamentals of how we manage our mind and emotions, the fundamentals of living in the present moment. Everybody talks about it, but do you know how to get in the present moment? I do. And I have a strategy that I can share with you that will also support you to live and operate in the present moment. You want to see it? Okay, I'll show you. Show you my big nose. No. Oh, you can't see it with my things over here. New spotting. Unless I switch it. What if I switched it? Boom. Can I do that? Oh my goodness. This whole time I haven't been on camera. Just my voice. All right, I'm back. God, it's so like zoomed in. I wish I could zoom out. That's why I like to throw something else up, because then it makes me a little bit smaller and more bite size. I want to be more bite size. I don't want to be that giant supersized face in the middle of the screen. Okay, what is the ego? Right? Step number one. That's just like not easy to read, is it? And I don't know what to do to make it darker. Well, I can highlight it though. Boom. You can see it now. What is the ego? Okay. Let's unpack this. The ego is a construct. It is man-made. We created an ego to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves. I'm saying self because that's what it protects, is the self. Before we get to that, we have to recognize that we are more fundamental than a self. What's beyond self? What is behind self? What is operating the self? Awareness. It precedes all of creation. Before there was something, there was nothing. That's awareness. And from that blank page of awareness, we create. And we create our self-image. When somebody asks you, what do you do? Who are you? Describe yourself. That's what we reference, is what we have created as our sense of self. I am going to do my best to stay laser focused and crystal clear, because there is a concerted effort for confusion to prevail in our world. And it is up to each and every one of us as an individual to ensure that we're alert and that we are awake and that we aren't letting nefarious influences and forces in the universe pull the wool over our eyes and deceive us into something that it doesn't serve our highest and best. That was my little rant. And now we're back to what the ego is. So Keith is my name. What's your name? Share it down below. I want to meet you. That's part of our identity. It's part of our self. I'm Italian, technically half Italian. See, it's very specific. This is a really important point to bring up, is that our self-definition is very, very specific. We are this, we're not that. We're this, we're not that. That's all part of the development process that Freud ended up kind of like laying out in a very beautiful way. It starts with, I think, the super ego, which is kind of like an ego that we adopted. No, sorry, I think it's the id. The id is the first version of ourself, and that's just like our instincts. It's very animalistic, I guess, is the way. I'm not a psychologist, okay? Forgive me here. And I certainly did not study Freud extensively. I'm familiar with his works, but I am vastly more experienced in how consciousness operates. So the little I've read about Freud makes total sense to me from my own firsthand experience. So it starts to id, then we have like this thing called a superego that, again, it's something that's kind of given to us. And then I believe the last stage of growth for a human being is the ego. And that's where we actually kind of like do a little inventory. It's around your teenage years, if you remember, or you have a teenager yourself. you know how rebellious teenagers can be. Well, that's our developmental stage. That's when we're basically taking an inventory of that super ego that we got from our parents and our family and our school and our teachers and our friends and all the various forms of influence in our life. And then we basically do an inventory, and we keep what we like and we throw out what we don't like. And a lot of that looks like going through life when you were a teenager, clearly opinionated about what was good and bad, and deciding, most likely on an unconscious level. Very few of us operate deliberately from awareness. Even at my level of experience, I still go unconscious every now and then. So don't beat yourself up if you're not aware 100% of the time. It's quite an endeavor to take on, especially in this world that is full of distractions. So we have this sense of self that we develop by going through our life and basically picking and choosing as if we were on a shopping spree. Oh, I like that quality. I like that quality. I like what that person said about me. I don't like what that person said about me. And through this picking and choosing, we develop an ego. We develop a sense of self, a self-image. It's how we see ourselves. And then now that we have this very, very delicate, fragile, like a Fabergé egg self that we've just created, it's my precious self. I often wonder if the ring of power in Lord of the Rings had something to do with the ego and the self, because Gollum is just like, my precious. How many, honestly, like, take inventory. If it's not yourself, then maybe somebody you've met on your path in life that treats their self like that. It's like, it's my precious little self. I won't hurt it. I won't harm it. I'll protect it. And don't you hurt it. Don't you harm it. It can become detrimental when that sense of self is not necessarily empowering. We'll get to that point when we talk about what's bad about the ego. But for all intents and purposes right now, we're talking about what the ego is. We create this fragile self. Well, now we need to protect this fragile self. And that's exactly what the ego is it's kind of a superimposed protection program that surrounds us. I mean, it's not physical, so you can't really point to it and say, oh, my ego's in my left ear or whatever. No, it's non-physical, but it exists. It is there. It is the protector and defender of our sense of self. We'll just keep it that simple. Every time somebody challenges our sense of self, our ego is activated. And it comes to our rescue or to our detriment if it happens to be defending a part of ourself that doesn't necessarily serve us, a part of ourself that might be limiting, like a victim. If you've ever come across a really ardent victim, and I have, they will proclaim with an odd sense of pride that I'm a victim of life. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. Maybe it's a reverse psychology way of reinforcing their existence. I can see that point of view. Look at what I survived. Look at what I survived. Look at what I survived. I like that. I'm gonna hold on to that viewpoint when it comes to victims. But for the most part, victims are vehement about their victimhood, about being wronged by this person, this organization, that group, whatever it is. And they'll get up on a soapbox and they'll exclaim with pride about how they've been victimized by their reality. Anyway, that's a whole other different subject for a whole other different video. We'll go into victimhood and why it's so detrimental. But are you getting a sense of what the ego is and how it protects and defends our sense of self, good and bad? We have parts of ourselves that we like, and the ego defends that. We have parts of ourselves we don't like, that we resist. Guess what the ego does? it defends those too. When somebody says, oh, you're so... I'm laughing because women, I find to be great examples of this, what I'm about to share, this example. If you've ever told a woman how beautiful she is, often the response will be like, oh, me? No, not at all. I just threw this together. No big deal. And then on the next day, they might have spent 3 hours on their makeup and their hair and picked the perfect outfit. And you encounter them and you say something like, boy, you look tired. The ego's going to be like, oh, what? I did so much to make myself so appealing, and you're not playing the game, the ego game with me right here. So basically what I'm trying to point out here is that the ego will defend our sense of self, whether it's empowering or limiting. If you believe that you're a loser and somebody calls you a winner, guess what the ego is going to do? It's going to assert, no, I'm not a winner. I am a loser. That's who I am. Or another example would be, let's say you believe that you're... How about you guys give me some examples? I want to hear from you down below in the comments. What are some examples of beliefs that people have? If you have extra courage and you want a bonus point, make it personal. Make it about you. Otherwise, let's make it impersonal, third person. What are some beliefs that you've seen people have about themselves that limits them? I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I'm inexperienced. I'm young. I'm old. I'm beautiful and shallow. I'm beautiful and hollow. I'm ugly and the beauty's on the inside. I could go on and on. Doesn't matter what it is, the ego's going to defend it. It becomes a real problem when that ego is running on automatic and it's just popping up at inappropriate times to defend what you believe, to defend what you believe about yourself. Sometimes we want to not let that happen. And that's where I come in. Got it? That's what the ego is. All right. Where can I put this? I want to put it somewhere. Blah. And let me grab this. That's supposed to say number 2. Let me change it real quick, if you don't mind. You can see it up close of my face as I get right up against the camera. All right. What's the upside? That's what you're here for, right? Everyone talks about how bad the ego is, but what's good about the ego? Why don't we get into that and take a moment to explore the upside of the ego? Something that probably a lot of you haven't ever done. I certainly didn't do it until I became more deliberate about managing my consciousness, my mind, my emotions, my beliefs, all of it, all the stuff that's going on the inside. You do that from awareness. The ego is another component that you manage from awareness, but it requires you to be aware of your ego. So while we're going through this process of describing what the ego is, I should give you exploring, right? Let's explore the upside of the ego. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, so a lot of people talk about the downside, but very few talk about the upside. All right, real quick, the upside to having a strong and well-defined ego is, of course, you have a defense program to defend your sense of self as it pertains to what you're deliberately deciding to believe about yourself. And I don't know, well, I guess you could be like a masochist and want to hurt yourself. But most people, they're going to deliberately decide to believe empowering things about themselves, things that lift them up, like, I'm amazing, I'm an artist, I'm a beautiful person, I have beautiful eyes. These are all empowering beliefs that we can have about ourselves. How would it feel to have your own personal escort at all times right there by your side to defend those empowering beliefs? So that when you encounter a pessimistic, negative, critical person that's like, oh no, you're not beautiful, you're ugly. Well, that's when the ego steps in and goes, excuse me, sir, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're obviously an imbecile and an idiot. So I'm not going to take your advice for a second. Have a nice day. See how my ego just showed up and defended what I believe about myself? It can be in a very calm and cool, collected way too. But more often than not, it tends to be reactive, especially when we don't have command of our ego. It just pops up when it feels threatened. When we feel threatened, we summon the ego unconsciously, and it comes to our rescue to defend our sense of self. Can you see how that is also an upside? Because there are some things about yourself worth defending. Are you a good person? I know I am. I dare you to come at me and accuse me of being a bad person with bad intentions. You'll get to see my ego like you've never seen it before, because I protect and defend my beliefs about myself that empower me to be a better person. There is no absoluteness. Everything is relative, and the relativity is based on our beliefs. If you want to be a good person, start believing you're a good person. That belief will compel you to take actions that will be the evidence of you being a good person. Don't do it backwards. Too many people put the cart before the horse, and they focus on doing good things in order to compensate for their lack of awareness of being a good person. When you're being something, it's an internal affair. When you're doing something, it's an external affair. Does this make sense at all? My intention is it does. So the upside to the ego is it will defend your beliefs that are worth defending when you're in command of it. Oh, upside of the ego. Also, yes, right? So your sense of self, it defends your sense of self. And in this defense is also your self-esteem, your self-worth, and your self-value. Because you believe that into existence as well. Hear me loud and clear. If you want to be valuable, then believe you're valuable. If you want to be worthy, then believe you're worthy. If you want to be magnificent, then believe you're magnificent. All the actions that reinforce that belief, they'll come. Don't sweat that stuff. That's all secondary. Primary is beingness. And so the another upside to our ego is it defends a robust, that's a great word, a robust sense of self. What do I mean by that? I wanted to download a picture of Donald Trump because he is just about the perfect example of a person with a robust ego. I would venture to say that probably what most people that didn't like Trump didn't like about him is that he had a ginormous ego, but he was also very sincere and genuine. That's just my disclaimer on that part. So what am I saying here? If you want to be the president of the United States of America, you're going to need to have a robust ego. If you want to be the CEO of you name it, you're going to want a robust ego. If you're going to be anybody of any consequence in life, making a difference, doing anything that leaves a lasting impact, creates a legacy, you're going to want a robust ego. Your sense of self has to be pretty dang important to take on those kind of responsibilities, those kinds of roles in our society, in humanity. The masses, there's plenty of the masses. They're the people that unfortunately don't have as robust an ego as the rest of us. I don't fault them for it. I think there's probably a beautiful freedom to that. It can be torture to be on the cutting edge, to be leading the way, to be an innovator in life. It's much easier to bring up the rear, and a lot of people do that, and they don't have a robust ego because it's not required. They're completely content with digging a ditch, or picking produce, or working at McDonald's, or none of these careers, none of these roles in our society are insignificant. But there is definitely a level of stratification when it comes to the responsibility factor. Somebody at McDonald's that fucks up, that messes up, is probably not going to put in danger as many people as somebody who's the president of the United States that messes up. That kind of a mistake has a tremendous amount of responsibility that comes with it. And I would say that probably is what discourages most people from realizing their fullest potential in this life. Is it's not all fun. It comes with an extreme amount of responsibility. I believe that's what JC was really teaching us. I mean, look at that guy. He gave his whole life. He gave his life to the prospect of humanity having a revelation. Let's call it that. It was a beautiful thing. And no, I'm not religious in particular. I just have a reverence for the masters that have come before us, that have been responsible enough to get us to where we are today, that I can be here moving it forward even more by being here on this live with you today, discussing the ego, so that you can take command. Well, so that you can feel inspired to take command of your ego and start using it as a tool instead of it using you as a tool. Put that away. And let's see. Number 3. What is the downside? What is the downside of the ego? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on here because the ego already has a bad enough rap as it is. Simply put, without taking up too much time here, the main downside of the ego only really happens when the ego's running the show. When the ego's in charge, when the ego's in the driver's seat, and your true self isn't running the show, isn't in the driver's seat, then you have definite downside, because that's when your ego can blow up opportunities because of what somebody said that offended your ego, or what somebody asserted as a belief that conflicted with your belief. You might be in a very important meeting with a very important ego that says something really dumb, And rather than react and blow up the meeting and the opportunity by being a smug ass defending and protecting yourself at the wrong time, that's the downside when the ego's running the show. When your protector is calling the shots. That's what we're talking about here. Are you enjoying exploring the ego? I am. Okay, got it? The downside. The downside only comes when we identify with the ego as our sense of self, rather than the protector of our sense of self. Do you know who I am? Who do you think you're talking to? That's two things that the ego would say. The next time you hear somebody say that, run, because their ego is running the show. Oh, I have so much fun. All right, incoming. Want a bonus? I always like to offer a bonus when I have my 3 points. What is the ego? What is the upside? What is the downside? Ready for the bonus? Incoming. Well, I already kind of gave it away, but number 4, the bonus. The ego is not you. Isn't that a relief? Don't you feel like your whole body relaxing? Tension is the ego. If you are feeling tense, that is always a sign to relax, because your true self's not in charge. Your true self is at ease. It's totally sublime confidence. It doesn't worry about anything. It isn't threatened by anything, and it doesn't feel the need to protect anything. So if any of that stuff is going on, that is a clear indication for you that your ego's running the show. Take a step back, reassess, get in touch with Keith and learn the new spotting technique so that you can get yourself into a present moment perspective and not have the ego holding you hostage. That's the whole point of it. There we go. Those are my main points. What else do I have to share with you today? Well, of course, I can always remind you of this, but I need to get rid of these things. I know. I can do it over here. Bye. Okay. As a reminder, you have been on this live streaming video for about an hour now, and I really appreciate you taking the time. There's a million other things that you could probably be giving your attention to right now. But if you're here giving self-awareness, your attention, understanding how you operate as a human being, your attention, you're my hero. My heart goes out to you, and I respect you for putting first what's really, truly important in this life. It isn't money. It isn't fame. It isn't stuff. It isn't image. None of that. The most important thing in this life is knowing yourself. To thy own self be true. That's all that really matters. And if you have been here taking the time to do that, I want to thank you by offering to you a complimentary taste of a present moment perspective. This is a $250 value that I'm offering you here today, free, for taking the time to come on here and learn a little bit more about yourself. In order to get that freebie, that complimentary taste of a present moment perspective, I'm going to ask you to put a hashtag found fun in the comments down below. Down there. Down there. and do it often. That way you have more chances to win. Over the next week, before my next live, which is every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will randomly scroll through the comments and select one of those hashtag found funds to offer a complimentary taste of a present moment perspective. So, to sum it all up, next time you catch yourself judging anything, not just the ego, as bad, all bad, like the ego, stop and consider its purpose before carelessly tossing it in the trash. I will say that again because it's worth saying it again. To sum it up, so to sum it all up, next time you catch yourself judging something as all bad, like the ego, stop. Damn it. Sorry. I haven't got this memorized and I keep looking off of the screen to get it down. So to sum it all up, next time you catch yourself judging anything as all bad, like the ego, stop and consider its purpose before carelessly tossing it in the trash. So to sum it all up, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. To sum it all up, next time you catch yourself judging something is all bad, like the ego, stop and consider its purpose before carelessly tossing it in the trash. Yeah, on another video, I will go deeper into the purpose of life and how everything in life has purpose. Sound like a great topic? Let me hear from you down below. If that's a topic you want to hear, then I want to hear from you. Catch me live right here every Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I appreciate it. As another bonus, if you want my new exclusive free guide, Imposter Syndrome, what is it and how do I overcome it? That's what I'm giving away for those that join my emailing list. I want to stay in touch with you. If you are feeling like you're here to do something really special that we all benefit from, then let's connect. And let's connect in a way that can't be interrupted. The best way to do that is by exchanging contact information. So down below, right there, you'll see the website, and I can get it to you. I'll put it in the description if I remember. Join the inner revolution, and let me get your contact info so that we are connected no matter what. And I will also be doing much more for the people on my emailing list than people that are just friends here on Facebook. So if you want the whole enchilada of Keith and the Found Fun Discovery Method, then definitely join my emailing list. And if you do, you'll get my free guide to Imposter Syndrome. What is it and how do I overcome it? I will cap this off by thanking you for attending and reminding you the fastest way to get to where you want in life is with a guide that has been there before you. Reach out to me, send me a message, find a way to make contact with me, if you are ready to realize your fullest potential and operate from a present moment perspective with more self-awareness. And what I want to say is I support experts and entrepreneurs making a difference in the world to be more self-aware and operate from a present moment perspective so that they can have more ease, personal power, fulfillment, and well-being without getting defeated by the familiar struggles, curveballs, exhausting efforts, unexpected delays that haunt most unaware people's lives every day. I do this using firsthand experience and my proprietary new spotting technique, which is part of the Found Fun Discovery Method, via intense, one-on-one, structured, regular practice sessions over the phone or Zoom. I look forward to working with you. Until then, see you next week, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for another insightful topic to explore regarding human consciousness and building foundations of fundamentals.